Hey guys, I just wanted to talk a little bit today about um, about a particular type of scam, a particular type of hustle, and why it works so well. Now, we're going to be getting a lot deeper into this in the Hustlers, Gamblers, and Entrepreneurs newsletter with an interview with my buddy Gary. He has been writing fundraising letters for nonprofits for many, many years, knows the world inside and out, and he's going to give us some really cool insight about how nonprofits literally deliver nothing and they get you to give their money, or what they deliver, some little tchotchke bag, or the little stickers that you put on the envelope, whatever. But all that stuff is very, very intentionally done. It's very specifically done, and they're brilliant about how they raise money. But that's the legitimate side of the business. Now I want to talk about the scammy side of the business, because that's kind of the part of the business I know a little bit about. I'm telling y'all, I in my almost dropped my phone there. In my mid to late 20s, I hung out with an unsavory crowd. One of the guys there, I was never really good friends with him, but one of the guys there was what he did for a living was he ran a telemarketing room where he would call around and get the folks in the general area, particularly the older people. He would get them to make donations to the local VFW or whatever. And he would put on this old guy's voice. Guy was maybe a little older than me, but you'd have thought that he was a World War II vet 15 years ago, when he would call up and say, the boys down at the VFW could really use your assistance, could really use some help. Well, what he was doing is he'd go around to the local VFW, the local whoever, and he would change periodically because there would be a news story about him. So he would change characters, and he would change who he was fundraising for or whatever. But here's how the deal went. He had a driver who would go pick up the donation. So he'd get somebody, he'd get a sucker on the hook, and they'd agree to give a donation, and then he'd have a driver come over and pick the money up from him, pick the check up or pick the cash up. Now, any cash donations, well, I mean, that was kind of, they were cash. So there's probably, $1 out of every 10 that got put into the kitty. Checks, on the other hand, of course, he had to report all those. So he only had to turn in, I think it was 20%. It may have been 10, but I think it was 20% of the donations had to go to the charity. But it was his count. So 90% of the cash he got was never reported, and everything else that was reported, he donated 20% of that to the charity and kept the rest of it. So basically, all the money that he brought in, he kept. I mean, that's the business. And now you think, my God, that's a scummy business. Well, it is a scummy business. But here was the deal. This guy would do this. He got very good at it, and he would do it. And he would transfer, from the VFW, like I said, to the, I don't know, there was a million little veterans organizations. Sorry about that. My phone just blinked on. But there's a million little veterans associations in and around St. Petersburg, Florida, that he would go see. And they were all willing to have him raise money for him, because they all knew that they didn't lose anything. It didn't cost him any money, and he would just bring them some cash. He'd bring them a report and some cash at the end of the week, and, they liked the money. So they were happy to have this guy raising money for him, and he was happy to raise money for him and keep 85, 90, 95% of the money that he raised. Remember, he was allowed to keep 80% legally, but the cash money was all on his count. So I'm sure no more than 10% of the cash ever got reported to anybody. Now here's the question. Why did he go to the VFW or to some other organization? See, this is the part that we're going to use in business. This is the part that we're going to use in the business. Why would he go to the VFW or some other organization and get their permission to raise money for them? The answer is pretty simple. See, he could have started his own for less than $1,000. He could have started his own fundraising or his own company, his own nonprofit, and then he could have raised money for his own nonprofit and given it to whoever, given 10% or whatever. I mean, he could have had two companies, and one was the fundraising branch and the other was the company. So the fundraising branch kept 80%, and then the actual charity kept, out of the 20% that they kept most of that money also and used it for quote unquote education and whatnot. But he didn't do that. He just went to other nonprofits that were well known and asked if he could raise money for them. Now here's the thing. The key is that they were well known. By associating himself with these, with the Disabled Veterans of America, for example, or the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, by associating himself with these organizations, what would happen is he gained instant credibility. So the old folks that he was calling up and scamming money out of thought he was instantly credible for no other reason than because he was associated with the VFW or the DAV or whoever he was associated with this time, this month, this 6 month, this year. Because like I said, every so often there was an expose in the paper and he would have to change his character and change his address and change the people he was fundraising for. So what can we do in our business? Well, we can associate with people who our markets find credible. It becomes instantly pardon me, it instantly becomes easier for your prospective client, customer, or patient to say yes when you are associated with somebody who they already find credible. It becomes instantly easier for them to give you money. So keep that in mind, figure out who your people find credible, and find a way to connect yourself at the hip to that person, and you will unquestionably start making a lot more money. Also, keep an eye out because we're going to be doing the Hustlers, Gamblers, and Entrepreneurs newsletter. That's going to include, among other things, pardon me, an interview. Like I said, interview every month. Like I said, we're going to be interviewing Gary. And Gary's been a copywriter. He's been around a long time, primarily in the nonprofit niche. So he knows this niche upwards, downwards, sideways, every which way around. He's the guy to talk to when it comes to figuring out how to get people to give you money without even giving them a deliverable. Now, if you could put the same techniques to work in your business and get people willing to give you money without even giving them a deliverable, but you're actually giving them a deliverable too, think how powerful that'll be. So keep your eye out for that. And until next time, keep on hustling, playa.